You're all probably familiar with this haunting image. It's one of the most well-known photographs taken during World War I and has been shared far and wide to demonstrate the horrifying effects of the trenches and specifically shell shock. But what's the true story behind this image, and who exactly is the man behind the infamous face? This photograph gained traction in recent years, frequently being shared on social media under the assumption that the man in question was crazed, more specifically someone suffering from the effects of shell shock. Shell shock is a term that originated during World War I. During the early stages of war, British soldiers experienced tinnitus, amnesia, headaches, dizziness and tremors. While these were symptoms typical of a blow to the head, the sufferers rarely had any head wounds. The term shell shock was first coined in 1915 during the Battle of Loos, reflecting an assumed link between the symptoms and loud explosions from artillery shells. As the war worsened, the number of cases grew, yet it remained poorly understood, with some believing it was caused by the shock waves from bursting shells, while others put it down to carbon monoxide released from exploding shells. Nowadays, we understand that shell shock is a post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from the psychological strains of warfare. When the image of the man's face started appearing on social media, the view was that he was suffering from shell shock. Website Rare Historical Photos claimed that the soldier looks like he has gone insane from what he has seen. It's hard to disagree with his glazed eyes and sinister smile. But to uncover whether this man really was suffering from shell shock, we need to understand the context around the photograph. The image was captured in September 1916 by Ivor Castle, Canada's most prominent propagandist photographer during World War I. The image of the man's haunting face is actually a crop section of a larger photograph titled "Dressing Wounded in Trench During the Battle of Courcelette." In fact, another angle of the scene was published in the Sunday Mirror newspaper on September 24, 1916, with the headline, "The Canadians Tending the Wounded After Their Great Charge." So, the question is, why would Castle capture and share images of someone suffering shell shock when his images were clearly intended for propaganda purposes? What this alternate angle also reveals is the supposed shell shock man is actually getting patched up for a hand wound. There's a chance that he was the victim of an artillery shelling which left him both with shell shock as well as a damaged hand. However, the more likely scenario is that he's smiling after surviving being shot in the hand. He may even have received what's known as the blighty, a wound that was bad enough to see you removed from the trenches and receive medical attention in Britain, but also one that wouldn't have any life-threatening effects. Still, that may explain the smile, but could the man's void expression not be another sign of shell shock? Some skeptics point out that his eyes could have been whitened by Photoshop. In truth, this bright white effect is actually a trademark of photographs of the time. It was difficult for the colour blue to register in photographs. That's why the skies in World War I photographs are often a bright white. In reality, the eyes of the shell shock man would be a bright blue, rather than the ghostly white seen in the circulated images. So, the evidence points towards a man grinning that he survived a bullet wound, not someone displaying the effects of shell shock. But to understand more about the situation, we need to know who the man in question was. It's alleged to show Robert Lindsay Rogers of the 25th Battalion, Canadian Expeditionary Force. The 25th Battalion were fighting in the Battle of Courcelette, the same battle that the soldier in Castle's photo fought in. Furthermore, Rogers suffered an injury in September 1916, the same time the photograph was taken. According to his account, he was hit in the neck by a sniper while he was cleaning his rifle. Miraculously, he survived, but couldn't be evacuated from his trench until nightfall. However, that doesn't add up with Castle's image. The shell shock man looks to be shot in the hand, not neck, and he was attended to in the trench, something that wasn't mentioned in Rogers' account. A closer look at Rogers' pre-war photos also suggests that he is not the man in Castle's photo. While Rogers did have blue eyes, his facial structure looks different to the man in the photo, and his ears seem to stick out more. The alterations in appearance could be down to the toils of war, although such a rapid transformation would be highly unlikely. Sadly, 11 months after Rogers was shot in the neck, he was killed in a charge against German positions during the Battle of Hill 70. Tragically, his body was never found. Today, his name, along with 11,000 other Canadian soldiers with no grave, is inscribed on the Vimy Memorial in Calais, France. As for Castle's infamous image, it's almost certain that the menacing man wasn't suffering from shell shock. While the person in question was also unlikely to be Robert Lindsay Rogers, saying that this image does tell us something else haunting. The very fact that this soldier was smiling so gleefully at getting shot, all so he could be defected from the trenches for just a few weeks, demonstrates just how harrowing life on the front line was. Castle's images may not tell us about the evils of shell shock, but through the smile and pain of the supposed shell-shocked man, one thing this photograph does show us are the harrowing evils of World War I.